Good morning. How is everybody? Yeah, tired? Yeah. I was just saying that I feel like I've been partying for the last 3 days in a row. I have the similar feeling, but in a good way. Just, yeah. But one more talk from me. We're going to go through, basically, some of you have seen some of these slides at least before, but some of you don't know what we've been doing in our project. So I need to go through a few things so that you understand why we are in the workshops and kind of our motivations behind this, and then also maybe something like why the workshops are structured as they are, and also like that you understand some of the materials that we have utilized when building the workshops. So the Batch project, as I previously mentioned, that's the official name of the research project, Emergent Unsustainabilities of Care, the Global Political Economy of the Adult Incontinence Pad. And it's funded by the Academy of Finland and Kone Foundation. And we started in 2019, and the funding takes us up to the end of 2024. I mean, obviously there would be work for the rest of one's life, as many of us know, but then in the precarious academic world after 24, as far as I know, I will be unemployed. There is work, but not necessarily money to do the work. Anyway, so why sustainable continence care matters in and for sustainable societies. We've spoken a lot about PADs yesterday, and our research also focuses on the PADs methodologically. So this does not mean that we're only looking at the PAD, but we're looking at the things that happen around the PAD, when it is used, as well as when it is not used, how it is used, and what kind of money flows, political processes does the need of the PAD in different contexts produce. This sentence, the future is adult incontinence, comes from an article written by, what's her name? Tara Olivo in the journal Nonwoven's Industry some years ago. It's an article on the market outlooks. And the market outlooks, of course, have been like the global market value of adult incontinence pads has grown and continues to grow in a rather steady fashion. There is a lot of money spent on adult incontinence pads, and obviously the growth of the market has to do with the aging of the global population, but at the same time there are new user groups in emerging markets, new products coming to the markets, etc., etc. So this, of course, means that somebody somewhere is using money to buy these pads. It might not be individual households, but it's also a lot of public procurements in public healthcare systems relate to these figures. Then this statistics is from Statista from 2017, and it shows the per capita volume sales in the incontinence markets worldwide by country in 2017 in kilograms. I love to show this figure for several reasons. As you can see, Japan uses the most of incontinence pads per capita per kilogram. Germany, close second. This is rather interesting, actually. Germany might be an interesting society to look at, and if anybody has contacts there, do get us. It would be interesting to hear about their systems. And Finland, on the third side, we use 1.3 kilograms of adult incontinence pads per capita per year in 2017, and I doubt that the number would have come down. So I think what is interesting is the comparisons. Norway and Finland, both Nordic welfare states, with relatively similar health systems, so that's what we often think, especially in international comparisons. But Finland uses 1.3 kilograms per year, whereas Norway uses 1.58 kilograms per year. Population Demographics, more or less the same. We don't know we have some ideas what the reasons behind this is. They might very likely are possibly tailor the use of the products more towards the individual needs. They have many more nurses per patient and per resident in care homes than we do. And possibly their pelvic floor health is taken care of better. And as far as I understand there is a lot of good work done in maternal care there. But just to kind of give the idea that it matters what we do on the local level, as Myra's presentation yesterday showed. And it matters how it works on the national level, as Kylie was good to point out that the World Health Organization, it's member states. So we need to look at these things on the sort of from the very micro level to the local level, to the national level, to the transnational level, to the and also look at the markets and all that. So, as we've heard yesterday, in OECD countries, 5% of municipal waste comes from adult incontinence pads. So it does matter even if we only would look at the pad. No, we can't only look at the pad, because we need to look at continence care more generally to put these numbers down. And Maribel yesterday gave us a very good presentation on waste management, particularly in the context of Mexico. But this is their review article that is really worth checking out. They review the waste management and environmental impact across the world. So adult nappies, that's the term that they use. In the United Kingdom, 5% of the municipal waste. Poland, 7%. Netherlands, 4.6%. I could have checked out also Denmark's figures and so on. And of course, it's not just like how much of the municipal waste comes from the adult incontinence pads, but also what do we do with the waste? So if it's waste to energy, it can be, with the present technologies, relatively sustainable. But then there are so many parts of the world where these pads go either to landfills or to illegal dump sites. And these are really also the concept, because we're talking about the majority world. We're talking about those people whose representatives are not here. So just something to bear in mind also when you go to the workshops. Right. So our aim, it's a very small project, obviously, but the project's aim is to catalyze change for sustainable continence care locally and globally. And that's what we've been doing. We've been trying to talk as many stakeholders as possible. We've gathered data with them. There are various different sorts of research materials. We've had people writing pad stories. We've spoken with municipal governance, with companies, with different health professionals, and obviously all kinds of documentary data as well. And we're still kind of in the middle of gathering the data, so that's why it's not very consistent of what we actually know. It hasn't been properly systematically analyzed yet. But anyway, in the project, we were talking with Kylie yesterday, and Kylie pointed out, but we've spoken so much about the pad, but continence care is so much more. But actually, I think we have spoken about how continence care is so much more. And the reason that we are focusing on the pad is because it tends to be the automatic solution, and it's not a sustainable solution. It's not socially, economically, or ecologically sustainable. So what we have done in the project is we've looked at, the pad is not just one thing. If you think about ontology, is a term referring to the things that are, to the nature of things as they exist. And the pad, every single adult incontinence pad, is never just one thing. Ontologies and realities emerge in practices of working with different material things. So practices with the pad, there are so many different, even in health professions, the ontology or the reality of continence care in general, it's several things at the same time. For a nurse, continence care is a different thing than it is for a urologist. And sometimes these realities are in tension with one another. And when it comes to the pad, we are researching it in 4 different realities. We're looking at the pad as a technology, as the past technologies, future technologies, utopian technologies, the pad as a commodity with different user groups, the pad as a site of inequality and privilege to use, also in the global context. We haven't, in our project, quite gotten to that part of that work package yet, but like Kylie and Kathy's research have already started, and Michelle, is she here somewhere? No, she's not. Yeah, Michelle Farrington has been, for instance, looking at issues in the humanitarian context, for instance, and suddenly, when the war is in Europe, there are actually much more actions taken in bringing continence products to the humanitarian context, whereas obviously the needs have always existed. And then we're looking at the pad as ways throughout the life cycle. Then, holistically sustainable continence care. We don't know what it means. None of us does. But this is something that we have thought that should be taken into account. And also, for instance, Jenni's presentation, you brought up the question of social sustainability and the definition of it. But I like this kind of a figure of sustainable development, where the sustainability is in the middle, and it kind of relies on ecological sustainability and social sustainability. And on the top, there is the economic sustainability. And I would have wanted to make a slide where you take off the bottom triangles, because then you can see what happens to the economy. And that's obviously what's going on with continence care at the moment, because we're not looking adequately at the social sustainability or ecological sustainability. It's stupidly expensive. It is so expensive to public health systems. And then instead we're talking about keeping nurses' salaries low, cutting services, rather than providing better care that can save money. And this is, I don't know what the silver bullet is in terms of actually making the change on the political level. But I think this is something that we would really need to work together towards. Okay, so our simple claim is that in a sustainable society, incontinence has to be accounted for everywhere in society. There is not a single decision made where you don't think about continence, because continence is obviously something that applies to every single person from the moment they are born until they die. Obviously, if you have like a stoma bag or something less, then continence is a different concept. But still, I mean, it still applies to every single person, living person. We all need to eat and drink, and we need to urinate and defecate. And that is, on that level, we're all the same. But then we are differently powerful with our needs. Our needs are differentially powerful in terms of what kind of responses they gain. And in a similar way like gender, I think we need to think about continence as an act of intersectionality. What is the level of we're not talking about incontinence, but what is the level of continence that the person has? And then what is their life like in this world? And if you think about it as a continuum, I'm only thinking about already the freezing cold water in the hotel in the morning. If you were on your periods, it was so much more difficult. If you had hygienic need related to urinary incontinence, probably so much more difficult. Fecal incontinence, surely much more difficult. And the hotel is not prepared to provide us any. They are just saying that, sorry, we can't do anything. We're just charging you 100 euros per night. They think that this is a minor issue. So it's kind of like, for whom is this a minor issue? So, but then if we thought about, if the world was ideal and continence was accounted, there is only cold water in the morning. What does this mean for people's continence? We know. Imagine that there would be a hotel where people would ask these questions in the first place. But anyway, so we would suggest that similarly that we are developing gender-sensitive policies today, we would have to start developing continence-sensitive societies, which would be more sustainable societies. But this is, of course, kind of preaching to the people who already know the stuff. But then, as we've heard over and over and over again yesterday, this is the elephant in the room, like Myra said. But where are we now? For instance, in Finland, lack of, and in other places surely too, but this is based on what we've worked on our work in Finland. Lack of preventative care, inadequate rehabilitation, lack of knowledge on incontinence in primary care, the choice of products not tailored for individual needs, wrong size or absorbency provided, wrong products, wasteful use of resources. Hospitals, care homes, public spaces designed without attention to incontinence. And this is really honest, and this is something that we didn't unfortunately discuss yesterday. Not only built environment, but also housing. Where is the one place in the media where you hear the word adult diaper or adult incontinence pad? Oh my God, I don't want to grow old because I don't want to end up in a care home and lie there in my bed in my incontinence pads. This is the only place where you hear the word. But then, you know what? We design elder care homes, but we don't design storage spaces for these products, for instance. We design hospitals. We've spoken to people who are designing and being part of designing hospitals from the very early on. And they were like, I'm not really sure whether we have anything to say about this interview. I don't understand why you interview us. So, yeah. So talking about elephant in the room, and this is like amazing. And obviously, and this is also a sustainability issue. If you don't have storage spaces, then what does it mean for logistics? What does it mean for waste management? What does it mean for care provision, fire hazards, all kinds of things? Anyway, obviously inadequate staffing in care and austerity in care also in the Nordic welfare states has been going on since, well, the early 2000s or so. So this means inadequate help with toileting needs. Problems in public procurement of continence technologies. There is not nearly enough. Where the procurement takes place, it might be people with economic sense who know nothing about continence or incontinence, and then they don't necessarily include all the products in the procurement lists. And then obviously people, when the procurement fails, then people don't get the products that they need from the public services. And again, we're talking about the most privileged parts of the world, obviously, where this is a public service. Standardized, this is something that I've learned from the industry, which is really, really important. Standardizations might actually be something that de-incentivize sustainable innovations. So, and this is obviously something that, you know, there needs to be changes on something that I don't quite understand the standardization procedure, but these changes need to take place in so many places at the same time. And obviously very little attention paid to incontinence care in low-resource settings in global health politics and discussions on sustainable development goals, which is, for instance, I think it is a lack of our meeting here today as well. Partly it has to do with COVID, that we couldn't get some of the people who would have come have only been able to participate online, but yeah, etc., etc. So where to go from here? This is something that I would hope we start. I know we're all tired, but the workshops that we designed, it's really just chatting, spending 10 minutes on different, rather simple questions in small groups, and then putting things from the discussions on post-it notes, and kind of, it's nothing very, very heavy, and hopefully you get fruitful discussions as well. So mapping sustainable practices today, and then you first map basically challenges and barriers to sustainable development in technologies, infrastructures. There's technology room, infrastructure room, and policy room. And then the second task will be, okay, these are the challenges, what are the solutions? And then in the end, you will discuss, okay, we've had these discussions, so what does sustainable continence care mean if we would work in this way? And what needs to be borne in mind is the planet, its people, and social relations, as well as the economy. And then let's see where we get. Obviously, we won't solve the world today, but I think it's something it's a discussion that has to be started.